how do you summarize that value creation from 2017 to 2022? Because it's quite remarkable if you look at the numbers, right? The value creation of that. So in hindsight, it's never easy, right? But how was the feeling structuring this in 2017 and getting to this point, which has to be quite remarkable? If you take the value creation, it can't be that many cases which has provided these amount of value for so few years, basically.
No, I agree, and I mean it's really fascinating to look at the company where we are today. Not even 5 years old, 1.5 billion in market cap, and we have been the best performing stock last year on the whole Oslo Stock Exchange with 330 different names. So that's something certainly to be proud of for the whole team here at MPC. I think it's worthwhile to say, although the company itself started on a blank sheet of paper, the background is the MPC group, right? So, and the MPC group is basically family-owned, yet stock-listed in Frankfurt, with a long experience in real assets and in particular in container shipping. So I think it's important to understand the fundament that this didn't come overnight. So we really, with a team of professionals, we prepared this let's say this story and this entry into the space with this new company for quite some time. Obviously, in shipping, it's always about market timing. It's about having the right entry price, and I think our analysis was right. That at least the entry price was good. What happened thereafter, obviously, was a bit of a roller coaster, admittedly, because things didn't move in the same kind of way that we had expected it. Yet when we did it 2017, raised the first 100 million, we said it's a 3 to 5 year recovery and rebalancing of supply and demand, particularly favorable for the smaller vessel sizes. So we basically saw a rebalancing, and then obviously you had trade war, you had the initial phase of COVID, which led to quite a setback with lockdowns, etc. And now we are obviously in a environment that is the best container market in history, and to be positioned to benefit, to get the full leverage from that with a sizable fleet of 66 ships is obviously fantastic. And we are now able to lock in long-term cash flow. So I think it has been a fantastic journey so far. I think it was also a tough ride at times. Yet I think we have been able to build a company from a blank sheet of paper. Maybe in startup terms, you would call it a unicorn, to something of 1.5 billion market cap, with a kind of equity raise of just a shade below 500 million. So I think that that is a very good story in my view, and something we want to continue to build upon and take it from there.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's super impressive. If we take the Ray Dalio quote that pain plus reflection equals progress, in what time was it most painful for you? Is it negotiating with bondholders? Is it being close to bankruptcy? Can you give us an example or a period where you felt some pain being the CEO and responsible for this?
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously pain is easier taken with the team, and we have a fantastic team here at MPC. So I think that's obviously someone stands out by virtue of role and having to take these negotiations. And certainly the phase where you were unable to, first of all, visit people and had to negotiate with them and look at these black screens on Teams where you definitely have the camera on, but everyone else might not, and you need to convey a message in times where the visibility in especially the early phase of COVID was, no one knew what tomorrow would bring, right? I think that was convincing people of something you didn't really know yourself, because no one did at that point in time, and asking for concessions. That certainly was I would say, painful period of time, and that was the let's say first half of 2020 in particular. But then I think we were able to convince everyone that it's something that has never been there in history, and we jointly need to position ourselves to to weather the storm, and so we did. And I think in hindsight, everyone, all the bondholders got repaid, even at a premium. The equity holders had their recovery, and now a very strong market. So I think overall it was worth the pain, so to say. But it was definitely an intense period of time that I certainly will not forget in my life.
Is it fair to say that these periods are inevitable in shipping, maybe compared to, a SaaS company in year 5 to 10, right? So if you're scaling the right way, you should be on the trajectory. But obviously, we're going to talk about the cyclical nature of shipping. But isn't it fair to say that these periods are inevitable if you play this game long enough? Or
at least they can happen, and you should expect them to happen. That's how I would put it. I mean, you can obviously be lucky and just hit the wave at the right point in time. I mean, I would say in hindsight we hit the wave at a good point in time, because obviously in the beginning things moved into the right direction, and then we had trade war and the beginning of COVID, and now we are riding the wave. So I think it's about being prepared for the unexpected, and make sure that you do not overlever your company, for example, that you maintain some sort of flexibility, and we had a fairly low leverage, actually financial leverage, even when we went into the more difficult times in the beginning of COVID. And I think that was, in hindsight, the only reason why we were able to maneuver through it. Yet it was tough times. So I think you should expect the unexpected, and then you're well prepared in shipping.
So today, it's a great growth story, obviously, but it's very hard to repeat that exercise the next 5 years in terms of the return on investment, or it should be very hard, right? So take us to today. You obviously are very positive, optimistic about the future, and you have, the contracts also, implies that you should be. But just explain how hard it is, this next challenge, coming up for that return on investment, because you can't replicate that or copy it.
No, you can't. But I think in shipping in particular, it's about being very rational in your decisions, and it's not about growth. It's not all about growth. I think to have a certain size, especially if you want to be listed and want to really have a stock that is worthwhile for investors and for the company, it's important to be very clear in what to do. And in shipping, there are times when you have to grow and invest and deploy capital, and that has to be well timed. And then there's time to return capital to investors, and to be also very clear and transparent about it. And at least in my book, now is the time to return capital to investors, and now is the time to really walk the talk, as we did on the strategy. We walked the talk. We said we will buy ships in that segment. We didn't deviate from that path. We bought ships at what I would say attractive prices, and now we will return capital to investors, and we will be very selective and disciplined on growth. That doesn't mean we will not do any growth measures by buying new ships or the like, but we will be very disciplined and rational about it. And currently, clearly, the focus is on returning capital to investors, and I think that's what people can expect. And I think if people know what to expect, then if someone enters now, they shouldn't expect overnight 20% return. They should expect a very visible and tangible path to dividends and distributions. And I would argue last year we have been the best performing stock from a growth standpoint, so appreciation and value. If you run the numbers, and I haven't compared that with everyone who's listed, but I would argue this year and going forward we will be a very strong dividend stock. So it's really time to take what is on the table, and I think now there is clear cash flows to investors on the table, a very high dividend yield, and that's what we're here for, and that's what people can expect.